Hometown Murder Tour is a true crime podcast for entertainment purposes only, assuming you find us entertaining.
That being said, stories of violence, sexual assault, and other criminal acts will be discussed, using adult language. Consider this your warning. Good morning. We've already fucked up the first, so we're already laughing. But anywho, here we are, episode 2.
Episode 2
of
Hometown
Murder Tour. That's the part I messed up, guys. Episode 2, couldn't even get our name right. So wrong. Anywho, good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm Amy.
I'm Sarah.
And we are excited because this is kind of our first official episode where we're going to stick to or kind of use the format that we had planned on when we decided we were going to do this.
Right. Last week, our episode 1 was just kind of an introduction on how we came to like true crime and be into creepy shit like murder and serial killers and all of that good stuff.
Yeah. And we gave you some really interesting facts about Springfield, Missouri as well.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure you booked your next trip here already just to see the sites that we described.
That's right.
Okay, so right now we're sitting in a parking lot. We did some mic checks. Hopefully the sound is a little better this week.
I feel like we warned you ahead of time, though. We said this was amateur hour.
Yes.
And so if you have a problem with the audio,
tough shit.
This is
how it's going to be because we don't know what we're doing.
We are doing our best with what we are wanting to spend money on.
Exactly. That's $16.99
Amazon choice.
You can have one too, everyone. Just so you know. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to drive by the scene of the crime. That is this week's episode. Should we go ahead and introduce that?
I think so.
Okay, so this is the murder of Don and Helen Willingham. Happened in 2011. So that's kind of the base. We are in Southwest Missouri. Excuse me. Of course we're in Southwest Missouri, but we're also in Southwest Springfield.
Yes.
Sort of a newer area, or it was 20 years ago.
Right.
Kind of where that was the time frame this area was built up. I was in college, essentially, when this parking lot that we're sitting in Chesterfield, that is, I think, about when it was built, was in the 90s. So do the math now. You know my age. Okay, so here we go. Driving.
We go. So this is, right now we're in Chesterfield, but we'll be headed to the Sherwood Neighborhood, which is where this murder took place in 2011. So Sherwood Neighborhood, we will post on Twitter the little neighborhood map. Springfield's divided up into several neighborhoods, and so we'll show you where Sherwood is located. But it is Southwest Springfield. And kind of like Sarah said, 20 years ago or so, it was fairly
farmland or empty land.
Yes, and they've gradually added subdivisions and homes, and it's kind of an interesting neighborhood. There's some fairly nice,
like more upscale homes.
Yes, more upscale homes mixed with not so much.
Not so much
is a good way to put that, I guess.
As we get closer to the actual neighborhood, I don't know what I was going to say. Just that you can tell that maybe 20 years ago or 25 years ago when they were built, it wasn't like it was slum town.
Right.
Just they were what I would describe as, builder grade homes or starter homes.
Just kind of modest, simple homes.
And now probably just with how neighborhoods changed, they became rentals. So over the years, they maybe declined, not so well taken care of. However, in 2011, which is already 8 years ago, I would say it probably wasn't to the extent of this, but getting there.
Yes, agreed.
So we are turning onto Scenic, and that's going to take us to the neighborhood. Now, from this point forward, we're not going to give you the actual address of the scene of the crime. Just, we're not total assholes people. So
we are interested in true crime, but we also want to be respectful.
Right. And you can look it up. If you're really dying to, you can look it up. Kind of that's it there. But we're just not going to blast it out to the 3 people that are listening.
Exactly.
So there you
go.
But
we are, because we are interested in true crime, and this is Hometown Murder Tour, and we're driving around in the neighborhood, or the neighborhoods where these murders occur that we're talking about, and we are going to drive by.
Yes. We're not going to park or anything or
no,
get out.
No.
So this block, before we get to the block the murder happened on, the houses are, I would say, a step above. They're brick mostly, or at least brick fronts. These are single family homes type, but once we cross over this particular street, it seems like, it goes down just a titch more, just siding houses. Oh, here we are.
Here's the house.
It's
brick and siding, kind of just a simple little home.
It's a corner lot, so lots of space, actually, more so than some of the other houses. Looks like a fairly decent backyard. Here's what gets me, Amy. So as we get into the details of the case, so this was a robbery gone wrong.
Yes, home invasion, botched. Yep.
And as I'm looking in the neighborhood, and even though it's declined a little bit over the years, I'm fascinated that this person decided this was the house they were going to rob.
Right.
And his reasoning was he was going to get jewelry. Now, I don't know.
This house, just looking, it looks very different. The family that looks like lives there now, based on what I can see in the yard,
12 children.
Is not who was originally there.
The Willinghams probably didn't have 12 bikes in the front yard.
Agreed.
All of that.
However, I see what you're saying. Like, it does not look like a house that screams, there's a ton of jewelry in here. Right. Let's go.
I mean, just walking down the street or driving down the street, it's like, okay, if I was going to rob somebody, I don't know that would be the house that I picked.
Well, and we've got some in the articles and things that we've read. The sheriff mentioned that this area was kind of prime for that. People looking for houses to rob, and it's a little surprising.
Yeah.
That this would be an area.
I don't know how a robber's mind works, home invasion person, but I guess they assume they don't have a security system.
Right. Well, and I've got I don't want to get into it too much, but I think I have a theory based on some of the statements that I'm piecing together about why maybe he checked that place out.
Okay. Good.
And
I was very curious about that. I mean, any of those houses down the street. This house was all the way down at the end of the block on the corner. It was a no outlet type of street, so there's nowhere to go. It's a dead end.
Right.
So I don't understand the choice on that one.
I think I have a theory on that.
Okay, good. I can't wait to hear it.
We can talk about that.
Well, and then we're going to call the person that was convicted of this crime. We're going to get him on the phone. Just kidding.
Yeah, we've got him on speaker.
He's actually in the back seat.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he's on, what do they call it when you get to leave prison?
I know, I can't remember.
Not furlough.
I know, I keep saying furlough. I think it's furlough.
Dang it.
I keep thinking of conjugal, too, which is not why he's here.
Totally
Listen,
different.
we're not about that.
There will be no prison proposals today.
Nope.
Well, I assume. I speak for myself.
You can speak for me, when it comes to that,
Our husbands would be very happy.
I don't think so.
But that is another thing that fascinates me. These women that marry inmates.
Knowing
what they've done.
Like, knowing what they've done. Yeah, the women that seek out the serial killers and all that shit. Yeah.
So we're back in Chesterfield. It was a little community they built, to be its own.
Chesterfield Village.
Yes, it's called Chesterfield Village. It has businesses, restaurants, retail. It has a movie theater, which is now converted into a church, which is something you need to know about Springfield.
Everything is a church.
Everything
was
closes.
A church or will be a church.
Yes, basically. Primarily bars or nightclubs will be a church.
Yeah, what was it? Was it Remington's?
Remington's is a church, which is not far from here.
Yeah.
Spent many a weekend there.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything. I like the way you said that.
Everything is a church, was a church, or will be a church.
That or a gas station.
Or a gas station. Or both.
Chesterfield Village has some restaurants. It's kind of not what it used to be. It needs to be revitalized a little bit. As far as like people don't come out here unless you live out here. It used to be the place to come. Like, oh, they have these restaurants or they have this, and now it's just kind of like
meh.
If you
we're in the
close,
area,
you're gonna come. Like people don't probably.
I mean, there's a few restaurants.
Yes.
That people will come to eat.
Black Sheep moved out here, so that's probably a big draw that hasn't been out here in a while. There used to be a private school in this building right here that they moved. So there's a lot of empty buildings. Let's just say that.
Yes.
But it looks very nice.
And it was designed that way. Everything was kind of built to
upscale living, I believe.
Right.
Now they have Chesterfield lofts. And Mike and I went one time to go tour them just to see what they're like.
Yeah.
And it had a big sign on the outside that said, come up and see. There was nobody there. Like,
could you still go up?
No.
Oh,
you had to have a key to get into the elevator to go up.
All right.
The lobby was nice.
The lobby looked really nice.
Yeah.
Imagine what those lofts look like.
Can't imagine. That's how exclusive they are. You don't actually get to see them. You just have to throw down the $2,000 it costs to live there a month. It's real ridiculous. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so that's a little bit about the area. There's an elementary that's right by that neighborhood and a middle school not far away.
There's a couple elementaries, aren't there?
Oh, I don't know.
I think,
like we said in the first episode, there's a shit ton of elementaries that I can't keep track.
Sherwood Neighborhood.
Oh, I guess Sherwood Elementary is over there.
And it won like an award.
Well, that was rebuilt.
Yeah.
And then Jeffries Elementary.
Yes.
And Carver Middle.
Yes.
I believe would be the feeder pallet. Had her in there. And take my seatbelt off. Hope that didn't make a lot of noise.
We are going to then go into the details of the Willingham home invasion murders.
Okay, so I thought we could start with a little bit about this lovely couple. I'm actually going to read parts of their obituary just to kind of give them the deserved respect that unfortunately their lives were taken too soon. If you
look at the picture, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, think of your grandparents.
They are your grandma and grandpa.
Yeah, so Reverend Donald Eugene Willingham, 79, was born September 4th, 1931 in Matthews, the son of Wesley and Norma. And, of course, he died on April 25th, 2011. He grew up in southern Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And after graduating from high school, he served in the U.S. Navy at sea and in Guam. While on leave from the Navy, he met and married Helen Mitchell in Poplar Bluff. So that is where Helen is from. Following the Navy, he attended Oakland City University, where he received a bachelor's degree in divinity and history. He and his wife answered God's call to the mission field, moving to Guam with their 4 small children. After returning from Guam, he accepted the position of Director of Foreign Missions for the General Baptist. He continued pastoring and planting churches in southern Missouri and Florida with his sweet, faithful wife by his side. It just breaks my heart.
Yep.
In the latter years, they served in Jamaica, Honduras, and briefly in China as missionaries. And in 2005, he was conferred an honorary doctorate of divinity from Oakland City University. Let's see. So a little bit about Helen. Okay. She too was 79, born January 6th, 1932 in Poplar Bluff. And then she died, of course, the same day, April 25th, 2011. She lived a quiet life on their family farm and graduated from Poplar Bluff High School. She met and married Don in 1952 while he was in college, and she kept a home and gave birth to 4 beautiful children. So she was, kind of probably, I imagine, the epitome of what in the 50s, was. You got married and you had children and doted on her kids.
She supported her husband, and they said she was just loved being a grandmother.
Yes. They traveled the world doing the Lord's work while raising the children and continued faithfully serving God during their lives. She was a gifted organizer and worked as her husband's assistant and true helpmate throughout his life. She also worked as a tax preparer and enjoyed being a grandma. So obviously they affected many, many lives over the years through their missionaries and so forth. So that's just a little bit about those two lovely people.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the actual incident, what occurred on April 25th, 2011. Our county sheriff, Greene County Sheriff Jim Arnott, if you watch Live PD, you've seen him representing Greene County on Live PD. He's been quoted in several of these things I've printed off as saying it was one of the worst cases of his career.
Yeah, very violent.
Yes.
Encounter.
So apparently it was really early.
I think they said morning, like 5:30.
5:30, 5:45 in the morning. They were awake, as a lot of people who are 79, 80 years old are, I think, making breakfast.
It was the day after Easter.
Probably
Easter. A big day for them.
Yep. They were in their home when an intruder comes in and attacks them.
Yeah.
And we know now it was to rob the place, but basically they
he went after Dawn first.
Yes.
And Dawn fought back
and was killed. Mm-hmm. And then
Helen was on the phone with 911.
Helen ran to call 911. She got on the phone. She stated that an intruder was in their home, that he was coming after.
Well, he said he killed my husband. And he's in the room.
And she says he's in here now.
Yeah.
Then you hear signs of a struggle, and then the phone is disconnected.
Ugh.
Yeah. And they said it was all in all, the call was 40 seconds. So 40 seconds of her getting on there saying, please send the police. They've killed my husband. And then they say you can hear, they didn't describe it, but they played it back at the trial and said that you can hear what's happening in the background before the phone is disconnected.
I will never listen to that.
No.
And then, so it looks like the police arrived within 6 minutes, which...
In between that time, so it says it's pretty quick. The police arrived, but in between that time, I have some information about the neighbor.
Yeah, someone's the guy.
Yes, so a neighbor, I have here, his name was Craig Hilburn. He was their next door neighbor. He testified in the trial. He actually went to the couple's home that morning to retrieve the newspaper, and it says here because he believed they were still out of town. So I'm wondering, here's my theory, had they been out of town, the neighbor was picking up their paper, did he notice that this house was empty?
Right, had he been watching
for a couple days? Had he been watching? This house had been empty for a few days, and it still looked empty maybe. It was dark, early in the morning, and he went in.
Good theory.
That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, you're maybe pretty much a detective.
They should have called me back when this happened. Yeah. Anyway, so the neighbor was picking up the paper when he sees, he says, a slender man in a hooded sweatshirt running away from the home. And he's like, that's neither Don nor Helen Willingham.
Right.
It's super early. It's kind of dark. I thought they were gone. This is sketchy. He says that he actually chased the guy for a brief period of time, couldn't catch him. And then this says he went back into the Willingham home and found them dead.
Oh.
And so at some point, the neighbor also called in between that time when the police arrived.
Helen had already called 911 at that point. Then that happened. That just tells you how fast that happened.
Yeah. I mean, that...
Like he brutally stabbed them.
Yes. And
in
two
no time.
People.
Yeah.
Two people. Yeah. It's
so bad. So, basically, then that's it. There is no leads, really. They did, think some guy at a convenience store might have been a suspect.
Yeah, they said, the sheriff said that they had the report from the neighbor, tall, thin man in a hoodie. They were going to check businesses with surveillance cameras in the area to see if they could pick up anything. The sheriff was pretty shaken. I watched an old video on one of the news reports, a press conference, and he was just like, I don't understand. It was violent. It was random. We can't piece this together. But he does say that this neighborhood had been targeted by vandals who had unlocked vehicles and vehicles containing garage door openers. And he says this area is one of the ones that are prone to that. But yeah, you're right. There was nothing. Like, they were basically asking, does anybody have any information about this? We know nothing. The family, I think, put out like a reward.
Yes.
If people had some information.
Which kind of brings me to what else was going on in the area at the time that kind of hindered a little bit of what the investigation. So I believe it was in the same month. So this was April 25th. It might have been the 19th, I think, that the two, the Porters, that couple.
That's, yes.
Turned up missing. So that was going on. And then also in May was the Joplin tornado, which claimed 161 lives.
Yes.
So a lot of the evidence that they were trying to get processed for the Willinghams was kind of backlogged because they were trying to identify victims from the tornado.
Exactly.
So
it sort of just pushed everything back a little bit.
Right. So there was a lot going on kind of in this area. If you don't know about the Joplin tornado, I think it's the most deadly tornado in the United States.
The history of the world.
The world?
We're going with it.
Yeah, let's say the world.
The deadliest natural disaster since the earth has been created. Pretty sure.
And there was that tsunami.
Oh, yeah.
So let's not say
Took seconds to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, it was really bad.
It was bad. So that was also going on, like, within the month.
Yes.
So that kind of hindered anything. Anyway, back to the Willinghams. So the 2 years later, people.
Yes.
2 years. They finally accused Jose Huckleberry.
Huckleberry, who actually
was already in prison for a robbery.
Yep. He was serving a 5-year sentence for a burglary that already occurred 2 months before the Willinghams botched robbery.
So kind of makes you think he was just on a rampage. Also noted, like, as we get into there was a confession, of course, as criminal lawyers do. They always try to get that thrown out. But he did confess and was very detailed about what he did to Dawn.
Yes, he says, which I actually have, he says he wanted to steal jewelry and other valuable items. He went into the unlocked back door.
People lock your doors.
He says he went to the unlocked back door. Early, he wanted to steal jewelry and other valuable items. He told detectives he had been drinking and smoking K2 the day before. He rode a city bus around town that night, thinking he needed to make some money. He says he remembered the Willinghams' house looking nice. I have here, when Huckleberry encountered Helen Willingham in the hallway, she tried to push him back outside. He then fought with Don Willingham, wrestled him to the ground, stabbed him several times, is what he told the detectives. He then stabbed Helen Willingham, who was on the phone with a 911 call taker, and then fled from the home. And Sheriff Arnott said, I think at one point, to keep an eye, when they didn't know who it was, to look for someone who had some defensive wounds, because he said there was a struggle. So, like, they at 79, people. They fought, they tried it. Oh, horrible.
Yes.
So I guess let's get to.
So he was
accused of
in 2011.
Yes.
Oh, nope. Sorry, 2013.
2013.
2 years later. So then goes to trial. Of course, not till. I mean, it takes a while. I don't have the year.
It was 20. Yes. No. So 2013 was when he was arrested, and then the sentencing and verdict did not happen until 2016.
That's right. 5 years after the crime.
Yeah.
Is when it all went down as far as his fate.
So I think before we get into all that, because it does get into, we've got the what the defense was arguing,
Mhm.
prosecution, all of that. I think let's take a break.
Okay.
Let's hear from our sponsor,
Let's do it.
and we'll be right back. Hometown Murder Tour is brought to you by Serendipity Designs, offering handmade leather jewelry that is simply to die for.
Go to serendipitydesigns.com and enter the promo code MURDERTOUR, all one word, for an additional 10% off your order. That's SARAHNDIPITY designs.com. Don't miss out on this killer deal. Okay, so here we go with trial and sentencing info, okay? So basically, as we said, it took 5 years from the crime to it all coming to an end, so to speak. So it took 6 hours of deliberation by the jury of Jose Huckleberry, who now was 28, guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder for the killing of the Willinghams. So guilty as charged.
Yes.
Now, as far as the trial goes,
their defense, they argued his defense argued that his original 7.5 hour testimony, or when he was the interview by the police where he admitted all of this.
Right. And the jury heard the entire 7.5 hours.
Yes. The defense argument was he was basically coerced into doing this after 7.5 hours, that they kept presenting him with, we have DNA, and so it pressured him into saying, well, I went ahead and did it.
Right.
That was their argument. His alibi,
quote unquote, question mark,
was his ex-girlfriend, claimed that he was in bed with her that night.
Apparently a booty call.
Right.
There were exes, so you know how that goes.
Mm-hmm. But was it her mother?
Her mother
was like, no, he wasn't there. He wasn't at the fucking house. Yeah.
And then also they said that her story kept, like, she couldn't get anything straight.
Mm-mm.
Like, how many years they were together, how long they broken up.
She was super unreliable.
Yeah. So basically, not a good alibi.
Yeah. So it
was a 5-day trial.
Yes.
So it did take a little while to get through all the evidence and so forth. And then Huckleberry also claimed on several occasions that there was someone else there with him. So he killed Don, but the other person killed Helen.
Yeah.
But that was never substantiated anywhere that I could see.
Nope. Me neither. In fact, I don't even think there was talk that they were going to look into this second person, and right. I think based on everything else, they didn't.
Right.
But yeah, so the jury found him guilty.
Yep.
He was sentenced to life in prison, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 15 years onto that for burglary. There was a lot of people there at the trial supporting the Willinghams, a lot of family supporting one of their sons said that the judge, at the moment that the verdict was read, that there was, or the son said that the judge said, please do not show any emotion when we read this verdict. And another article I read said that there was a gasp in the courtroom, like a sigh of relief from pretty much everyone. Right. And then the son says he immediately started crying when the verdict was read, that this was just such a relief. That was said by the daughter, I think, as well. They just kept talking about how this was a burden that was lifted, that they felt at peace. A big weight was lifted off their shoulders.
Where's that quote that she said?
Of the daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah, the family, first of all, just a testament to Don and Helen. Like, they raised some pretty incredible, their family.
Faith was obviously very, very strong.
Yes. The family, they talked about, sorry, we've got tons of paper here.
We have 143 papers in the front of our car here.
She basically says,
come on, Amy.
I know, sorry. This is, she talked about how she didn't want to see the family or Don and Helen as victims.
Got it.
Did you find it? Okay, here we go. Exact quote from the daughter.
From the daughter. Mom and Dad were not victims either, because God was in complete control of their lives right up to the very end, and no one could take them before their time. And we know that God often uses very horridly evil events for good, and that's what we hope for out of this case. We hope that the young man sitting here today will realize that God has a calling and a purpose in his life too, and that he can follow that calling no matter where he is. I mean, that's the most healthiest reaction.
Yeah. I mean, just
trust me, that would not have been mine.
No. I mean, and every one of the family members that was interviewed, one of their children, they were just, I mean, they expressed sorrow and they expressed, that this won't bring my parents back, but it, brings closure. But every single one of them just good and were good to the end. And I don't think I would have it in me to be good about that.
I would hope so. But hopefully none of us will be in this horrible situation. God bless them all. Yes. I do mean that, because this is awful shit.
It's horrible. And they're just, like I said, it's like reading about your grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets you a little bit. But that's the
case of Don and Helen Willingham. And look it up. There's a little bit more info, but guys, we're pretty thorough.
I mean, I feel like you know everything you need to know.
You do. We got the DNA kits back in the back.
Yep.
We went ahead and had our third party test those.
Yes.
So we've confirmed that he is guilty.
He is.
Jose Huckleberry.
Also,
so just like how about that name?
Jose Huckleberry. I know.
It's like a cartoon character.
It really is like a fucking cartoon character. And I kept wanting to make Tombstone references. I'm your Huckleberry.
Right. Let's not ruin the movie though.
But I don't want to. Right. But I feel like now I'm going to think that.
Yep.
A little bit. So yeah.
Okay.
There we go. All right. So that is
episode 2 in the can.
Or I don't know. Is a can a thing?
Is that a podcasting term?
But yeah. So that's kind of the premise. Normally, this is what we'll do. We'll have a case. We'll talk about it. Drive around a little bit. Give you the info, and you will be hooked.
I
mean, you're already hooked, but we've got a lot of them.
Jody, and Linda,
and maybe there's like a couple others who are listening. Anybody?
Hey,
my aunt.
Tweet at us.
My aunt's listening.
Tweet. Murder Tour. Tell us you're listening. Tell us what you like. Don't tell us what you don't like.
Yeah, we already know. Yeah, we already know what you don't like.
Yeah.
But yeah, at Murder Tour on Twitter.
Find us there.
Find us.
We have an email. We still don't know.
We still don't know what it is. I feel like we should have checked.
We should have. Next time.
Just
Episode
Twitter.
3.
Just Twitter.
Yeah. Great.
Yay. All right.
Have a great
Have a great day.
day.
Bye.
Bye. Episode 2
of
Hometown Literature. Oh, really?
No.